Welcome to the first episode of News of the Week of 2019. And in these last 24 hours, there was definitely a lot of big MLS news. And we begin probably the biggest one out of this week, which just happened today. And that is Guillermo Barrios Schelotto is officially named as the new head coach of the LA Galaxy. And all I'll say about this is that I knew it. I predicted that this was going to happen, and I wouldn't say I completely predicted, and I just said that, yeah, I think Schelotto is going to be the Galaxy head coach, but I knew it was going to happen. Like, when you look at how De Boer was going to Atlanta, and how Schelotto, for sure, originally he was going to Atlanta, but De Boer, of course, took that spot. It just feels like for sure that now most likely Schelotto is going to go to the Galaxy. And in fact, before when Schelotto was heavily linked with Atlanta, the Galaxy actually linked with Schelotto first, and that they were potentially probably going to get him first, and then it was later that Atlanta was probably going to try to hijack this deal and try to get Schelotto in as their new manager before the Galaxy has, but obviously we know how that ends up later on. But when you look at this deal, certainly this will really help the Galaxy. You know, I know Schelotto, with all that talk of how he wasn't doing very well with Boca Junior, he's still a very kind of big name. And for the Galaxy, and for one of the most prestigious teams in MLS, you would just think that they would need to have a big name. And Schelotto certainly is a huge name on him, and now it will be very interesting to see how Schelotto will manage this team and how will he keep the egoistic Zlatan in check in this team, because it's one thing to take over a very prestigious franchise, but it's another to try to take hold of it and also have Zlatan on your team. And also this kind of maybe give a little bit kind of feel in terms of the Cali Clasico. I know the Cali Clasico kind of started to die down a little bit ever since the introduction of El Tráfico last season, but certainly with Schelotto, used to be a Boca Junior manager, and Almeida used to be a River Plate manager, and I don't think they ever faced each other when they were at River Plate and at Boca Junior for the Super Clasico, but certainly this will be a very interesting battle between two very promising and young Argentine manager. But next up, so the Miguel Almiron saga continues, and this is a really big twist in terms of this saga that Miguel Almiron is facing. So originally, Newcastle United was heavily linked with him, and that they were right about to sign Miguel Almiron once the transfer window opens in England, which just opened a couple of days ago, and it looked like for sure that that was going to happen. But for whatever reason, yesterday they decided to pull out of the deal, and that they are no longer interested with Miguel Almiron, and instead Real Betis is actually now showing interest of signing Almiron, and that Almiron might not be going to the Premier League, but instead going to La Liga. And I think for Miguel Almiron, I think it was definitely smart the fact that he decided to not go to Newcastle United, mainly because, you know, Newcastle United this season, they've been pretty bad, and this is a team that is prime candidate to get relegated this season, and the fact that they also don't have really a lot of talent on their team, you know, it was going to be hard for Almiron to settle in. And also the fact that, you know, the Premier League is one of the toughest league to try to adjust. It's a very physical league. I don't know if Almiron is probably going to do very well there. Now, that being said, if he does join Real Betis, you know, we don't know if I'm assuming once he joins Real Betis, he'll probably get his chance to be playing in the starting 11. I mean, Real Betis is a respectable kind of team in La Liga, but they're not Atletico Madrid or or even Real Madrid. They're kind of like a mid-level kind of team. So I think it would be smart for Almiron to go to Real Betis instead of Newcastle. But again, like I said, just recently Newcastle turned down their interest of getting Miguel Almiron, and there is just this stage of Real Betis potentially going to get the Miguel Almiron sweepstake is still in a very early stage. They still haven't even announced how much they will pay to Atlanta in order to get Miguel Almiron. But yeah, next up, speaking of big signings, so this kind of doesn't really relate to MLS, but in many ways related to the team that I support besides the San Jose Earthquakes, which is Chelsea, and also the U.S. men's national team. So today, Christian Pulisic complete a record-breaking $73 million to move to Chelsea from Borussia Dortmund. Now, what's interesting about this deal is that Pulisic is still going to be staying at Dortmund as part of a loan. He's going to be there until the end of the year, and that Chelsea will not be getting Pulisic until next season in the Premier League. But, you know, I know a lot of American Chelsea fans are probably just dancing like they won the Premier League, or they're just reaching into cloud nine, the fact that they're seeing their American hero joining the team that they support. But to me, I'm not kind of one of those guys. And in fact, I feel this is a bad move for Chelsea, because for $73 million for Pulisic, that is a lot of money to pay for him. And it's not like Pulisic was doing amazing at Dortmund. I mean, this season especially, he really struggled to break into the starting 11. And the reason why he wasn't in the starting 11 regular is because of Jadon Sancho, another guy that I really admired as an England fan and hope that he does well with Dortmund. But because of his continued brilliance at Dortmund, that's how Pulisic is kind of kept out of the team. So to pay someone that can't even crack the starting 11 at Dortmund and only have 10 goals in 81 appearances for that team, and you pay $73 million, yeah, that feels like a really big risk and just way too much that we pay for him. Now, if this amount was like 40 or 30 million, then yeah, I get it. I understand. That sounds like a more respectable deal. And also keep in mind, since Pulisic is going to Chelsea, you would think that he would be in the starting 11 for that team. And if he's going to do that, then there's going to be a whole ton of pressure in order for him to be successful. We all know that Chelsea fans are very impatient in terms of some of the new signings that they had, and if you don't perform, they're going to turn on you, just as what happened to Alvaro Morata when we signed him, I believe, last season, and how everybody is basically just turned on him. So the pressure is definitely there for Pulisic, and I just feel like if he does not perform, if he does not do well with this Chelsea team, then this is a huge waste of money, and this will really hurt his career. I mean, to just jump to a Dortmund team where he struggled to get into the starting 11 and took a huge leap of faith to join a big team in the Premier League. Yeah, that's a huge risk that Pulisic is taking. But I'm hoping, as a Chelsea fan, I'm hoping he does well. I'm hoping he prove a lot of doubters wrong. The fact that, you know, he can't perform once he's in the Premier League, and he will stick up to his $73 million price tag. But I just have a big fear that this is going to end up very badly. And yeah, that would not be good. But either way, next up, so Orlando City are report to sign Brazilian midfield Diego, and this is a guy, for those of you that have never heard of him, is a guy that is kind of considered a journeyman in Europe. I mean, he has joined a lot of different teams. He used to be a very promising player when he signed with Porto back in 2004, and that was fresh off of them winning the Champions League. And it looked like he was a very promising player and potentially will break out. But injury, of course, crippled his career. He moved to many different clubs, some club including Juventus, Atletico Madrid, and now it looked like Orlando City is going to try to sign this this midfielder who is 34 years old. So yeah, signing a guy that is on the wrong end of 30 and near the end of the prime. Where do we heard that before in terms of Orlando City trying to sign a Brazilian midfielder in his dying year of his career? Oh yeah, that's right. It's Kaká. So basically, Orlando City is trying to do something that they did a couple of years ago with Kaká. Although, unlike Kaká, Diego is kind of a bit of an unknown star, and I'm guessing this move is a move where they want to put this move, hoping that he might be kind of like as same. The way that he plays is going to be as same as Kaká, which that's just ridiculous because Kaká is 100 or 10 times better than Diego. I don't want to say 100 because that's a bit disrespectful to Diego, who, he has joined some very respectable club and he does have some sort of talent left in his tank. But, it's a very strange kind of move, consider that Orlando City maybe want to think about trying to get young, and that the league right now are mostly focused on bringing South American young talent, as many teams are basically doing that. But instead, Orlando City decided to bring in a South American player that is near the end of his career. And I also think that they make this move just because of Yoshio 2 moving to Cruz Azul, and that they need a kind of high-end, kind of talented a player that is a veteran player to be on that midfielder, and they're hoping that maybe Diego would be that guy. Moving on, Argentine winger Lucas Rodriguez signed with DC United and paid Atlanta United 50,000 GAM for the discovery rights. Now, I'm not gonna lie, but when I heard this news, the one thing I was very confused was this: the discovery rights. I didn't know that was actually one of the rules in MLS, and I know there's just so many rules in MLS, so many weird transfer rules, and I think this is one of the weirdest ones. So, to trying to kind of explain what this rule is about, because I kind of read a little bit about this rule. So, basically, this is a rule that originally Atlanta United actually purchased Lucas Rodriguez, and they paid him 1.7 million. And basically, it's like a team that purchased a foreign star, but unfortunately, they couldn't get the contract negotiation done, and their contract negotiation is kind of put in a hole, and that team can put a discovery right claim on that player, which that's what Atlanta United did to Lucas Rodriguez. They put a discovery right claim on him because they never got the contract negotiation done. And now DC United decided to kind of hijack this deal, and for them to be able to hijack this deal, they first need to pay the 50,000 GAM for the discovery right. So to put it in simple terms, this is a rule that is pretty much preventing teams to hijack other teams' deal. And what's weird about this is that this does not happen a lot in MLS. And I feel like just a rule that prevent hijacking other teams' kind of players that they have signed. Yeah, I mean, if it doesn't happen a lot, I feel like they shouldn't have made it this rule. I know it happens a lot in the European League, where we have here famous story about teams hijacking each other deal, but in MLS it rarely happens. So yeah, this is one of those kind of unwritten, almost like unwritten rule of MLS, but it's actually written, and it's kind of like one of the secret rule of MLS, one of the rule that usually never applies a lot. But because of Atlanta United putting a discovery right claim to Lucas Rodriguez, that's why DC has to pay that. And it's not really a lot that they pay him. It's 50,000 GAM, which is not much of GAM, or not much of general allocation money that Atlanta would receive. But that's how it works, okay? And I'm pretty sure a lot of you that have never watched MLS probably have no idea what I just said. Don't worry. It's a rule that it's weird. It's something that we usually never see in MLS. And the only reason why we have this rule is just prevent teams to hijack other teams' deal. But moving on. So Jordan Harvey re-signs with LAFC while Danilo Silva sets to re-sign with LAFC. So left back Jordan Harvey, of course, re-signed with the team. And Jordan Harvey was actually one of the guys that I was hoping the Quakes could potentially snatch up because, one, he's a left back, and two, he's a decent kind of left back in MLS that I thought we could potentially get him, but unfortunately now we can't because he's re-signed with LAFC. And as for Danilo Silva, this is a bit interesting, the fact that LAFC decided to re-sign him, because he was pretty much the biggest reason why LAFC lost that RSL game. He made a couple of big mistakes that led to a couple of goals from RSL, and he didn't really do that well with the team. I mean, he was supposed to be a guy that maybe would replace Lawrence Simon in that center back position, but it turns out he was not very good at doing that. So it's interesting the fact that LAFC is sticking with some of their players in terms of that back line, and I really think that back line is something that LAFC might think about addressing in the off season, because it wasn't very good last season. But finally, we got Boca Junior captain Pablo Perez report to be interested to come to MLS. So, this kind of rumor probably has something. The reason why we actually had this news was probably most likely of the Schelotto kind of signing, and that maybe Pablo Perez is going to follow Schelotto to LA. Although there's also some rumor that there's two other teams that are interested in Pablo Perez. One of them is my Quakes team that is interested in Pablo Perez, and I don't mind having Perez as one of our signing in this offseason that we had. I know he's not a left back, which is something I'm desperate for the Quakes to sign, and he's not really a center back, which is something I desperately want the Quakes to sign. But he's definitely a very good midfielder out of Boca Junior, and he's the captain of a very recognizable club, not just in Argentina, but in the world. So I really think that he could really work well under the Almeida system. Although one thing I do think will not make this move happen is because Perez is already 32 or 33 years old, and Jesse Fornelli tends to not like signing guys over 30 years old. He tends to go for young kind of players on that team. And then the other player or the other team that are rumored to get Pablo Perez is the Sounders, because of Nicolas Ladero potentially going back to Argentina, and maybe they're going to pick up Perez as that option. Although it's kind of weird because, if you're going to replace Ladero, replace him with a young kind of player or a young South American talent, not an old kind of veteran experience kind of South American talent that you're probably going to have to replace once again in the next 2 years. But either way, that is pretty much it for the news of the week. Let me know in the comments below, what do you think of these news? If you have any other important news that I forgot to mention in this video, make sure you put that in the comments below. But yeah, hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I will see you guys next time.